Faith: The Unholy Trinity is a horror game that looks like it was developed for the Atari 2600. It has 8-bit graphics that don't really convey much detail, and sometimes it's even hard to make out what things are supposed to be. The music is extremely simple, and most of the time, non-existent. The voice audio is crunchy, incomprehensible. In spite of all this, or maybe because of this, Faith manages to be one of the scariest games I've played in years. I'm here to argue that you should play Faith: The Unholy Trinity. Everything about Faith is scary or disconcerting. When the game starts and you get out of your car to toil through the forest, you realize that the character you control, John, is just a blob of blue pixels. And you will be thinking to yourself, how is this game scary or disconcerting? It's worth mentioning that the simple graphics make it easy to read whether a character is hostile or not. But just being simple is not enough to make the graphics scary. Erdorf, the developer, is very good at putting two pixels together and making them terrifying. Just look at this tree. God, that's creepy. And it's just like 3 sticks and it's creepy. The graphics are simple and he leverages that in the best possible way. I think his art works and is scary because the graphics are so low resolution. It is too vague to see what exactly the monster is supposed to be. The only thing that you can tell for sure is that it's dangerous and that you should stay away. By not knowing exactly what you're dealing with, your brain fills in the gaps, but you're always just a little bit uncertain, with unresolved conclusions and suspense. This phenomenon of presenting something simple and letting the audience fill in the gaps is perhaps better demonstrated in the audio design of Faith. At first glance, it's a questionable design point. Faith uses voice dialogue, but it's crunchy. No, crunchy doesn't even begin to describe it. It's worse than that. I can barely understand it, and that's with subtitles. Just listen to this.
I'm looking short with boys. Ned, Jason, Martin. Have you seen them?
What did he say? This lowest resolution of audio is actually genius. The apparent excuse is that the game is trying to mimic the look and feel of an ancient video game console. So a primitive sound chip would sound like this. But the actual effect is that the voices and music always feel just a little bit off, a little on edge, which adds a little bit of tension until you hear something like this.
I have somebody.
What the hell was that? When you add a layer of distortion to the already choppy and weird voice lines, the result is something that is quite disconcerting and unsettling indeed. Unsettling themes are the core of Faith. There's allusions to a lot of really messed up stuff happening in Faith. Sometimes it involves horrifying things happening to infants. And while all the themes are really heavy and contribute to the player's feeling of uneasiness, what sets Faith apart are the references to religion. John is a priest. He wears liturgical vestments with a proper Roman collar. Yes, that's what the little white thing is called. His only weapon, if you can call it that, is a cross that he waves in front of him to banish demons. It's religious horror, and it scares the crap out of me. In my personal opinion, the essence of religious horror is guilt. The guilt of unresolved sins committed and the fear of eternal damnation of your soul. Of someone who was raised Catholic, 6-year-old me was terrified of committing a sin so grave I would be damned to hell for all eternity. Faith's story is about John's journey of guilt and repentance. John is already living trapped inside his own personal hell on earth, unable to come to terms with his past, whatever it might be. John's motivations are portrayed very clearly. He wants to rid himself of this guilt, to redeem himself, to set things right. But the devil, ever so cunning, is a deceiver. The deeper we delve into the story, the less certain we are about our righteous purpose. Are we really on the path of redemption? Or are we delving even deeper into the depths of hell? As a player, you find yourself with constant questions and scarce answers. If you want to know the truth, you're compelled to keep playing, collecting notes, and delving deeper into the maws of the dragon. Faith tells the bulk of his story by employing notes scattered throughout the levels that are often hidden behind some sort of challenge. This encourages the player to think, explore, and experiment if they want to figure out who John really is. But when it comes to conveying the story, Faith employs what I think is a more powerful technique. Look at this door, for example. I don't know what's behind it, and I really don't want to find out. Have you seen all the crosses outside? What are they keeping in? And what the hell happened in this hospital? There's so much blood! The curriculum for this daycare seems to be really lacking. I think the concept of environmental storytelling is one that is fairly easily understood. It is when pieces of the scene are arranged in such a way that the observer can piece together what happened in the past to warrant such an arrangement. If done correctly in a video game, the player feels smart for figuring out a piece of the story, almost like a detective. There's countless examples of environmental storytelling throughout the whole game that really help feed the suspense and make the player care just a little bit more about this perturbing world. It makes the game a joy to play. And rest assured that underneath the Atari graphics and crunchy sounds is a competent video game. There's notes to collect that recount pieces of the story. There's challenging boss fights, secrets that lead to multiple endings per chapter. It's fun to uncover a secret boss by doing a series of esoteric steps, and after defeating the boss, to be rewarded with a note that recounts just a little piece of John's past. Faith is not just a game that is scary. Faith is a game that is fun to play. And there's some real challenge to be found. I bet you cannot get the Good Christian Boy achievement. Faith approaches horror by building layers upon layers of suspense and disconcerting atmosphere. And it's not just my belief that this atmosphere, more than anything, is what makes horror scary. Suspense is more enjoyable than terror, actually, because it is a continuing experience and attains a peak crescendo fashion, while terror, to be truly effective, must come all at once, like a bolt of lightning, and is more difficult, therefore, to savor. Many of the scariest video games stick close to this philosophy and build a thick atmosphere of suspense. Layers of unsettling visuals, disconcerting music, strange sounds, abnormal characters all come together to form a feeling that is ripe for terror to descend and grasp up your heart and shake your very soul. Faith executes this masterfully. It builds suspense so relentlessly that when you actually get to fight a monster, you feel almost relieved that all that build-up tension can go somewhere. You don't need awesome 3D graphics, amazing voice acting, complex cutscenes and dialogue to build hair-raising suspense. Faith manages to build suspense with basic building blocks and easy-to-read designs. This simple game construction is what makes Faith so effective. This is why it's one of the scariest games I've played. This is why it's one of my favorite video games. This is why you should play Faith, the Unholy Trinity.